turn to what's been happening here in the United States, where over recent days we have seen the polls tighten right up, both nationally and in the states that will decide who is going to be made president Tuesday of next week, just 5 days away. But today we've seen some mixed news in the polls, some better news for Hillary Clinton in some of them. Donald Trump, though, continuing to gain ground in others. When you average them all out, Hillary Clinton is still in front. Can she maintain that? Has the situation stabilised a little bit in the wake of that FBI intervention at the end of last week? Bruce Hawker is here in Washington now as well. He does spend quite a bit of time over here, well connected with the Democrat side of politics. I spoke to him for his take on how things are looking. Bruce Hawker, great to see you here in Washington, D.C., where it's all happening. Everybody's glued to this campaign. Perhaps we should explain for Australian viewers that it's not simply winning 50% plus one of the electorate. This system here, the presidential contest, is an electoral college system. How does that work?
Yes, well, it's very different to Australia, David, as you pointed out. Here, the country is divided up into the 50 states, and each one of those states has a different vote allocated to it in the electoral college.
Based roughly on population?
Population. So the biggest state, California, has, I think, 35 votes, going down to the smallest state, Alaska, with 3 votes. And so this huge electoral college amounts to 538 votes. So the magic number in this election is 270. And that means that each one of these states is critical to the outcome of the election. As you say, it's not just 50 plus 1, it's winning in each of those states and getting up to 270 votes.
And like our marginal seats, it's the battleground states where they spend all of their time.
Indeed. Indeed. You're not going to see anyone in the Midwest in this election campaign in the last week. This is the California or New York. This is the critical get out the vote phase of the election campaign, and they are going to be concentrating on the battleground states where the margin either to Trump or to Clinton is very narrow.
So what, looking at today's polls, and they have really tightened up over the last week for various reasons, including the FBI email affair, but they do still, on an average, put Hillary Clinton just in front nationally. How confident do you think she should be?
Well, I don't think she's feeling super confident like she was last week when she was really doing victory laps around the country. And now, you know, for example, they're fighting a tough battle in Michigan, which should be a strong Democratic state, and they're still fighting hammer and tong in states like Florida, Ohio, which looks like going to Trump unusually. It's one of these bellwether states in the past, but because it's something of a white enclave now, it's more likely to be a Trump state this time, even if he doesn't win the election. So the money still is on Clinton to win, because for Trump to win, he would have to really have a perfect storm of success, really.
The other great concern in the Clinton campaign now is getting out the vote. Voting, of course, is not compulsory, so it's important that you get your supporters out to vote. And with the prospect of having to wait an hour or two in line to vote, will people really want to spend that time and energy voting for Hillary Clinton? That's where they're focused right now, isn't it?
It is, and they're having early voting, of course, these days, but some of the states have done some pretty sneaky things in order to try to make it harder for some people to vote early. For example, in North Carolina, they've just got one place for where you can go in certain places to have an early vote rather than a lot of them. So that makes it harder for people. But this last week of the campaign is all about getting out the vote. And the most important thing from the Democratic side of the campaign is to get out the black and Hispanic vote.
Which has been a bit, well, the African-American vote has been a bit down, hasn't it, on what they were hoping for?
Yes, it has been, and there's some speculation as to the reason for that. It was historically high when Obama was the candidate, of course, being an African-American candidate for the presidency. But now, with Clinton there, there's not the same level of enthusiasm. If they don't get that big black vote getting out in states like South Carolina or North Carolina, Florida, and other states where there's a high black population, then it could get tricky for her in those states.
And meanwhile, Trump, certainly over the last 5 days, the last week, he's been doing everything right. He's been focused, he's been very disciplined. He's been targeting Hillary Clinton over the emails. He hasn't wandered off script and offered the Democrats another clangor that they can use against him. This has been quite a disciplined effort.
Indeed, and I think for the first time he really sniffs the prospect of a win as a result of this FBI investigation, as you pointed out. He isn't doing all these crazy things that he's done in the past, much to the disappointment of a lot of the media here who have enjoyed that sort of the rant from Trump and the unpredictability of him. He's focusing on so-called Obamacare, which is a big issue for a lot of people in middle America. A lot of them don't like the fact that their insurance premiums are going up under this health system that they've got, which was introduced by Obama. He's obviously focusing very much on the FBI investigation, and that's helping him a lot as well. So it's a campaign where she's on the back foot at this point, and he's on the front foot. She is trying to make a big point about the FBI investigation, there being some perhaps perceived bias on the part of the director of the FBI in doing what he's done and reopening this investigation at this point, particularly when he hasn't done the same thing or publicly announced an investigation into the Trump allegations against him. And so, there is some grounds for her to cry foul there, but I'm not sure that that's really cutting too deeply in the public's imagination.
Bruce, look forward to catching up over the next few days. Thanks very much for that.
Pleasure.